welcome to What You Doing Podcast, the interview podcast where I talk to cool people about the amazing things that they're working on. My name is Matt. Today I find myself absolutely amazed to be sitting down with Jason Cordova to talk about the Gauntlet, running a publishing company, and his own TTRPG designs, including most recently Brindlewood Bay. Jason's someone I've been following in the TTRPG space for a long time. The Gauntlet is a pretty special little thing, and to have him on the podcast is really exciting. I have a fun little announcement that I'll talk about in the outro, but for now, let's get to the interview.
Am I very plosive-y? Like, are you hearing lots of like pops when I go pop, 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 or okay?
No, you sound good, yeah.
Fantastic, great.
I love after all of the like years of doing podcasts, you're still like, how do I sound? Am I good? Okay, cool. Whereas I'm like
a podcast guy.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know, record. Let's go. We'll figure it out.
I've been doing podcasting for so long that, and I know what my editors are always asking about, so that's what I try to deliver every time for everyone. So yeah.
No, I love it. It's great, and I'm very much of the school of like, I don't know, we'll start recording, and if it's weird, I'll figure out how to fix it in editing. Hey everybody, welcome to What You Doing Podcast. My name is Matt. Today I'm sitting down with Jason Cordova. Jason, say hi.
Hello, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. I'm very excited. This is one of the weird episodes of the podcast where Jason doesn't have anything like new or anything. It's just like we're just chatting with Jason about what he's done over the last, I mean, we said at the intro, like almost decade of doing stuff with the Gauntlet and publishing and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this. So I want to say last year was our sort of like 10-year anniversary, I guess, of the Gauntlet. And this would be the 10th anniversary this year of like just me doing podcasts and stuff, right? So this is I've kind of like renewed my podcasting focus this year, kind of in honor of us starting podcasting 10 years ago. So yeah.
I like the idea of after doing podcasts for 10 years, you're like, you know what I should really get into? Podcasting. I should really get into this podcasting thing.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep into it, for people who might not be familiar with you, go ahead, give us a quick little intro, who you are, what you do, pronouns, and basic stuff.
Yeah, I'm Jason Cordova. I use he, they pronouns. I am the founder of The Gauntlet, which is a gaming community and publishing company focused on independent tabletop role-playing games, pretty much however you define independent tabletop role-playing games, but with a focus on story games and a little bit of the OSR. As part of my duties in the Gauntlet, I co-host a few of our podcasts, the aforementioned podcasts. Fear of a Black Dragon is one of those, which is about old school adventure modules through a story gamer lens. I also co-host The Darkened Threshold, which is about mystery and horror in role-playing games, and as well as, and specifically the games that I publish. And we just restarted the Gauntlet podcast. That was our very first podcast from 10 years ago. We just restarted that in a new version called the Gauntlet Podcast Second Edition, where my co-host Wes and we take a look at an old story game from years ago, and we talk about what we would do if we were making a second edition of said game. And so that's another show that we're doing right now. But yeah, so podcasting is a big part of what I do. I am a publisher of people's games. I am a creator of games. Probably the games that most people are going to know that I've made are going to be Brindlewood Bay, The Between, and Public Access. Those are the three that were authored by me. I'm also the co-author of the Silt Versus role-playing game along with Gabriel Robinson. And I've published a bunch of stuff from other people, probably most famously the Trophy RPG by Jesse Ross. And I eat, breathe, and sleep role-playing games. It is just a non-stop thing for me. So yeah.
And it's increasingly easy to do that once you take once you take a step to being like one bit more clued in than the regular person. I feel like starting the podcast obviously did that for me, but even just before, as soon as you start keeping up with even just a few creatives, you realize like, oh my God, there's so many games all the time. There's new games everywhere.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
And as a publisher, aside from being a creative, I can imagine all you think about is RPGs because you're thinking about where's this in editing, where's this in layout, where's this in final, where's this in printing, is this on the boat, where's the boat, where's the
well, and the marketing aspect of it too, right? Like I don't think people understand, for a lot of us, for those of us who like aim to make role-playing games our job, as opposed to just a side hustle or a fun thing, 75% of what I do is marketing, and it has nothing to do with writing games and making games. I mean, that 25% that's about making games is really important, and I love it. But the part that like makes it feasible is the marketing part of it. That never stops. But fortunately, I enjoy it. So I like the parts of the job that require me to like play my games and talk about my games and just get my games out there. Like that's my, I live in that space,
Do you find it easier? Do you find the marketing aspect easier with something like, I mean, I think it wouldn't be too unfair to say the Gauntlet is a fairly unique entity in the TTRPG space, like this combination creative publishing house, fan community. I have the Codex hardback, on my shelf. I almost broke it out. I meant to
entirely non-profitable book. Yes, we love the hardcover Codex book. Yeah, and just like,
do you find that makes it easier to market, where you have this kind of captive audience, so to say, or do you feel like it pushes you to push further?
It's interesting, right? Because I think for me, I make role-playing games mostly because I enjoy playing them. Like there's a part of me that in everything I do, I try to center and orient to the center the experience of play, right? Like it is not enough for me to just want to put a book on a shelf or to put a PDF in someone's folder on their computer. Like I really want people to play it, and I want people to understand my games at the sort of like play level, right? And I think part of the reason why I have that attitude is because I came from the Gauntlet. Before we were a publisher, we were just strictly a play community, like we were organizing, you were back there in the G+ days, like we were organizing hundreds of game sessions, like every year. And that was just so central to who we were, like getting games to the table, playing games, finding out what makes things work, like understanding role-playing games at a really practical level as opposed to a theoretical level. That's really, really central to what the Gauntlet is. And so I kind of like, that sort of informs how I create games. It also happens to be very helpful and informs how I market them, right? So I always make sure that our core supporter, our core customer, our core community member, who is like a member, that is somebody who supports us on Patreon or who has been following our podcasts for ages or who is in the Discord. Those people, if I know a game is working for those people, if I know a particular mechanic is working for those folks, if I can see and read the excitement, then I know I can transmit that more widely, right? Like if that core group loves it, I know what I can do with it from a broader perspective, right? So in some sense, yeah, they're kind of like a really hyper focused selection of the market, right? like they kind of are like my test market, I suppose, in a certain sense. But we just love it, like I mean, yes, I want to sell books, but also I just really like playing role-playing games. I really like running role-playing games. I have a YouTube channel where you can go watch me running hundreds of sessions of role-playing games. And I love it. And happily, that is also marketing, right? Like it's the thing I love to do, the parts of the hobby that I love, I have been able to translate those into things that also help me sell games, right? So if somebody sees me running one of my games, they are not just, getting presumably a entertaining experience of watching me run a game or watching our players, play them, but also like learning how to run that game, right? And getting a good sense of that. And so maybe they'll be more interested in trying it themselves, So yeah, it all just kind of comes back to play and all the different ways that play informs how the Gauntlet operates, how I write games, how my collaborators, like how we create things. Like play is just so central to it, so.
This might be worded oddly. So the Gauntlet, like I said, is a very unique space, very interesting thing where a game will sort of perkle up from you or a co-designer or something like that, and it'll filter through the community and it'll get played and played and played and played and played, and then it'll eventually reach Kickstarter, and that'll be what most people experience.
Right. Yeah.
Do you find that that's sort of like, I don't want to call it design by committee because that has like incredibly negative connotations, but like, do you find that playtesting, that like severe honing and playtesting, do you ever find it like chafing as a designer, where like, do you ever feel constrained by that? Or do you feel like since you have, like you said, you have this incredibly focused, excited test group, like, do you ever feel pressure that you have to design to what they like? And do you feel pressure from their opinions? Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I see where you're going with that question. For me, it's more about like, I do think that like a lot of the folks who are in the Gauntlet, they're there because on some basic level, the way I and maybe my podcast co-hosts, the way we think about role-playing games and the way we think they should work and the way that we kind of like interact with the hobby, I think that is naturally appealing to them. So it's a little bit of selection bias, right? Like the people who are there because they like the way we do things, right? But also, I feel really strongly about this idea that as the game creator, it's my job to like meet my design goals and to stay really true to my vision and then sell it to people, right? So like I believe really strongly in my idea, and now it is my job to make everyone else feel the same way about it, right? Like I always love to be able to tell a story about our games, right? Like where did this come from? Where in my headspace did this come from? Like what was I thinking about at that time? Maybe it's a mechanical thing. What was I thinking about in terms of the game's mechanics? Like how was the design informed by other games that I've been kind of we've been playing or talking about or noodling around with. And so, yeah, I kind of feel like part of my job is to also like to convince those people like, yeah, this is the next thing. This is the thing that we're all going to be excited about, right? And that maybe it doesn't always work, but I do like to think that I get enough of them eventually on side, I think it helps that I do have really, really open lines of communication with our sort of core Gauntlet folks. Like we've got podcasts where we are talking about things, right? Like I am very available in our Discord. Like I hang out there. If somebody has a specific question about one of our games, oftentimes the community will answer it, but I don't mind getting in there and kind of sharing my thoughts as the game's creator, like what I think, So I think there's also like a sort of communication aspect there that makes it easy to then bring new ideas to the group and say, hey, because I think I have a certain amount of like credibility, right, with our group, so that's a big part of it. Going back to what you said though about like that kind of like iterative process of design and like kind of letting something exist for a little bit in a sort of digital place and then taking it to Kickstarter, that's a really, really important part of how we do things in the Gauntlet, right? Like I will release a game on Patreon or whatever other digital channel. I like for it to be like basically like 90% done, like this is basically done. It's totally playable. You're going to enjoy this. In the case of Brindlewood Bay and the Between and public access, you're going to enjoy it for years before we go to crowdfunding, but I'm also going to be paying attention as you play. I'm going to be asking you questions as you play. I'm going to be seeing what people are responding well to. I'm going to, I have my own instincts as well. Like I put a game out, but I've now been playing it and I have a thought that maybe this particular procedure or rule doesn't quite work, or it's not doing what I want it to do. Maybe that's confirmed by folks in the Discord who are playing it. And then once we've had a couple years to sort of figure all that stuff out as a community, then we make the sort of like the final version, the ones that most people will interact with, right? That's just how we do things. I don't think we will ever take a game directly to crowdfunding. Like, I just don't think that's ever going to happen. Like, we will always let a game live in a sort of like very, 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 very highly polished beta state, like for a while, right? Before we go to the sort of official, real, true 1.0, like it will exist in a really, really polished beta. That's the way we've done Trophy, Brindlewood Bay, The Between. We're going to kickstart public access this year, the physical edition of that. So, and all of these games had years of hundreds of people playing them before we went to crowdfunding. And that's just, I just think that's the responsible thing to do. It also, I think, to me, the crowdfunded version of the game is the one that I want to be most proud of at the end of the day, right? It's the one that I want to best reflect my vision, and like what and kind of what, like where we landed with it, like this is the ultimate version of this game, and you're getting the one that we are most proud of and the one that we know works the best, so yeah, I'm lucky and happy that we have we have the ability to do that, right? We have the ability to let a game find an audience for a while, and to find play groups and to get people kind of excited about it, and indeed to get them to sort of like try things out, and see what they think of it before we have to take that bigger, more risky step,
Yeah, and I think it's an incredible asset for y'all as individual creators, and then as a publishing group overall. A thing that's come up a bunch of times, talking to various TTRPG creators, is this idea of revisiting a game and sort of reworking a game and saying, okay, here's what it is, and then figuring out changes or design or coming back to it and be, with a clearer head and saying, oh, actually, this is how I want to do this. And I feel like the Gauntlet community is like a pressure cooker version of that, where it's like, okay, here's the game, and then you throw it in there, and then it gets all, okay, there it is, and it pops out, and here's the game. And I think,
well, and we're gonna play it, that's the thing. Like, it goes back to this idea of play, right? Like, I want people to play these things, and I want them to interact with it in the way that it was meant to be interacted with, right? And because it's gratifying as a game creator. I like for people to play my stuff, but also there's, like, again, it's this idea of the people who are going to be playing this in the Gauntlet are the people who are going to put it through its paces, and they know, like, they're going to know what is working, what's not working. They understand our particular play culture that we're always trying to convey in our games and how it works, it interacts with that. They, for a lot of our community members, they know my personal expectations because I talk about them all the time, right? Like, so it's a bit of a pressure cooker, but I also would be really clear about the fact that we're having a lot of fun, right? So, like, that's really important, right?
Yeah,
like we're all having a lot of fun, right?
I mean, pressure cooker more is accelerating the natural process more than any. Yeah.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, I think that for me, it's like I always want our games to be in communication with each other, in communication with the Gauntlet community, in communication with media, like folks. Like I want to know what they're like. I like for our games to be in communication with all these different groups of people as much as possible, because it's all just helpful data, right? Like, it's all stuff that I take on board, and I find my way to the best version. At the end of the day, I always am the one who makes the final decisions about my games, right? Like, I know what I want, and I'm going to express my particular vision. But I find that the fact that our games are out there getting played by so many people, and I'm able to, like, watch and see what's happening, or watch somebody stream it and see what they do with it. Like, I'm always taking that in, because I want to make sure that my vision matches up with the experience at the table, and how do I have to alter that to make it the best experience,
Yeah, I've always wondered how TTRPG creators feel, and it's gonna vary, I would imagine, with, like, okay, I made a game, here it is, and then you watch somebody do an actual play. I always wonder how many times someone's sitting there just like, oh, that's not what I know.
Sometimes it's so bad. Like, sometimes it's so bad. Like, sometimes it is so bad. But here's the thing, though. that is very helpful, right? Like some of the very, very early streams, for example, of Brindlewood Bay, Brindlewood Bay was doing at the time was doing a lot of really novel things in the space, and things that people hadn't really done before or seen before. And we had people finding it because of its subject matter. We had people finding it who maybe were not super well versed in Powered by the Apocalypse style games, or they weren't really well versed in narrative or story focused games, and they had more of a sort of traditional role playing game background. And some of those streams were hard to watch. Like, they were really hard to watch because they were just like plainly not getting it right. But that was helpful because when we did the eventual version, the sort of eventual Kickstarter version of Brindlewood Bay, I made sure to beef up the keeper support section. I made sure to sort of to make like the examples much more clear and concrete about like how it should go, and I included my design thoughts at the end of the book as well. So like I wanted to I was trying to answer some of the like issues that like people who had never played games like this were running into as best I could in the game's text. But also, I was also like, you know what, Jason, you have to show people how to do this too, And so that's when the Brindlewood Bay days, that's when I really started I was like, you know what, I've got to put videos of me running the game on my YouTube channel so that people can like get directly from the horse's mouth, like this is how the game is meant to be played and run, and I think that's been really helpful too, So yeah, those sort of like those early streams of people playing Brindlewood Bay the very wrong way were helpful as well.
Well, yeah, so, doing it wrong can be, like you said, way more valuable than doing it right, because you realize like, oh, okay, I see how we got here. Exactly. I see how we got here. And
in all cases, I could tell everyone's having fun, so that's good. You're happy everyone's having fun, but at the end of the day, it's a thing that people say like, oh, as long as everyone's having fun, there's no doing it the wrong way. Well, no, there is a doing it the wrong way. Like I'm glad you had fun. I'm glad we're all having fun. But as the game designer, I do have a particular intent, and I do.
It can be fun and wrong. It can be both things.
But be even better, fun and right. So that's kind of my feeling on it. Like, yes, I love it. I love people. You know what? I'm not going to come to anyone's house and slap the book out of their hand. They can play the game and run the game however they want. I love that. I love that you're having fun. But me as the publisher and designer, I do feel a responsibility to at least put my marker in the ground and say, this is the way it should go. Right. And so,
No, I think that's totally fair. And I think like that's one of the exciting things. I was looking on YouTube. I was like, I wonder if Jason's done any interviews, and all of the Brindlewood Bay videos came up. And there's actual play is such an amazing thing. It's so cool to see games run by people who are so clued in. They know what they're doing. They understand, narrative form and dramatic tension and all of these things. But I think it's something so special to see the person who wrote the book run the game. I think it's something just one step more exciting. I don't want to say better, but like more exciting to be like, this is the person who put those words together. Here's how that's going to go. And it's always exciting to see that and to have that visibility and that just like, oh, this is going to be good. This is going to let me know how to run it. This is going to let me know how it works.
I love it when a game designer does that. Like, John Harper does that, right, for his games. He not APs as much, but like does those like how to play Blades videos and stuff. Like I think that's all really helpful stuff. I always tell people who are like kind of just getting started kind of professionally in role playing games, like publishing the games, I always recommend get an actual play of your game somewhere on the internet. If you feel confident in your ability to run the game well, then you should be that person. But maybe you're not. Like I happen to be. I think I'm a pretty good GM, and so I feel very confident getting on and running my games, or anyone's games for that matter. And I know that it's going to be a good tool for people. But maybe you're not so confident in the game running part of it. Well, find somebody who is. Give them a couple $100 to run your game so that you have a video of your game being run, and you are way ahead of like 90% of the game designer market, right? By having just a a video of your game being played. It's just so, it almost feels like mission critical at this point in the industry, right? Like, I don't know how games get by without something like that, right? I mean, if you want to have any kind of success in the market, you really have to like show people that like it's showing people how to run your game and how to play your game, but also it's sort of telegraphing seriousness, if that makes sense. You know, it's like saying, I care enough about this, like, to make this video, and also it's a real game that people are playing, that people are in, you know, it's a real thing. And yeah, AP, you know, from a marketing standpoint, is really, really important. And even if it's just one video, that's a video that you can post on your eventual crowdfunding page. It's a video that you can like include in the show notes for things like this or for other appearances you make. It just feels so important to me, you know. Yeah.
It's a thing I've thought a lot about, of like looking at designers' digital footprints for their work and stuff, you know, talking about things like itch pages or you know, cards or link trees or whatever you end up doing, like having more content there, having more things, having things like, oh, here's my game, here's this person playing it, here's a how to play, here's like a little trailer someone did, and that's part of why I started doing this podcast. Was I wanted to, more so because for years I was like, I don't want to do actual plays or anything like that. Like, I'm a white guy looking person. I don't want to, nobody needs me in their thing. You know, I don't need to take up that space. But what I kind of ultimately decided on was, I was like, I like talking to people. I love asking them questions about the things that they're doing. And I love having that opportunity to help them promote themselves and talk about their stuff. And I was like, I'll just do a podcast where people talk about their thing. And then they're like, here's me talking about my thing. If you want to know about my thing, there you go. Exactly. I'm talking about it. I asked all kinds of questions. You questions, we probably talked about it.
Yeah, that's great.
And people have been so excited.
Well, I'll tell you, like from the vantage point of somebody who came up, like I came up like in a role-playing game era where, so basically, like, you know, we kind of started on G+, which was a terrific space for talking about and promoting games, right? Like, I don't think we'll ever have anything like that again. It's very sad, actually.
It was so weirdly built compared to how things are now. It almost it was an accident. They didn't know what they were doing.
I don't know how we replicate it, right? But you know, we kind of started there, and then we had to adjust when Google Plus went away, and kind of went through a few horrible Twitter years because I think everybody did, and then, you know, and we eventually kind of found our footing in Discord in different ways and different things. But as someone who kind of came up, you know, having to promote their games without traditional media, you know, like without traditional journalism, you know, like without like we don't get to benefit from like the kind of like earned media that like something like Dungeons and Dragons or Free League, you know, like we don't get that, right? So I appreciate when folks like you like put together streams or podcasts or whatever where we just get to talk about, or you know, our stuff. Like I told you before we started recording, I'll show up anywhere. I'll show up anywhere to talk about my games because I get it, you know. It's like you've got a new game, you've got a new thing you're working on, and you just want people to engage with it in some way. And so you're looking for every place that you can to engage. And this industry can be really hard in that way. You know, it can be really, really hard. But on the plus side, for folks who are maybe watching this, thinking about kind of becoming more professional, on the plus side, you also don't need a whole lot to succeed. I mean, it depends on how you define success, but you can do a lot with not much in this space, you know, like you really can. And so you just have to kind of like find your lane, find your niche in the market, believe in your idea, and then, and find people who are willing to talk to you about it, you know, and do your, you know, if you've got an old school adventure module, like get in front of my face or my co-host Tom's on Fear of a Black Dragon. Like we will, if we play it and cover it, like that'll help you, right? Like you just got to find the folks who are like talking about your stuff and who are interested in the stuff that you're doing, and every little bit counts, you know, every little bit helps. So
yeah, God, in the G+ days, if like it was just trying to get 3 guys with a blog spot to talk about your thing, and that was making it.
That it was. But you know what though? Like Brindlewood Bay, a lot of Brindlewood Bay's early success was precisely because the Alexandrian like gave the old edition of the game a good review, right? Mm-hmm. Like people were finding it who never would have found it, you know. And the thing is, you never know who's going to find your stuff. Like I didn't give Justin Alexander a copy of my game. I had no idea he was playing it, right? I had no idea. But the thing is, like, the more you put your work out there, the more you chat with anybody who will listen to you, you know, every little bit, it all adds up, and eventually you're going to reach a certain amount of like critical mass, or like you're going to have a little tipping point, right? Mm-hmm. You really got to keep at it. That's why I said earlier, like 75% of this job is marketing, right? And there's no getting around it. And like, and I think, you know, some people like they catch lightning in a bottle with their game idea, and they don't need to do a lot of marketing, and God love them. Like I'm so happy for them. Like that's great. More power to you. But the rest of us, we have to get out there and talk, you know, and we got to put it out there. And so I appreciate stuff like this for sure.
Yeah, and it's great to see. You know, it's cool to see people talking about cool games. You know, I think
exactly. Yeah,
it's cool to it's a thing I keep coming back to. Like, fans need to promote things that they like, because like you as a creator, or whoever as a creator, can only do so much. They only have so many hours. If 10 people play their game and like it, that's 10 more people that can be promoting their stuff, talking about their stuff, you know, saying, hey, you know, from this, you know, I've been recommending people to things. People have been recommending me and whatever. And that's, as soon as you get out there and people start to know you and moving, you know, that's great. More, it's the focus. Like, going into 2025, like, the algorithm will not save you. You know, just post on social media will not save you. Yeah. You as an individual, whether as a creator or a fan, have to push the cool stuff that you want in front of people. And sometimes you have to be blunt about it and be like, look at this cool thing. Look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that part of it's not getting easier. I mean, there's interesting things happening, like with Rascal and like you know, some other like little media initiatives and outlets that are out there. But to me, nothing, absolutely nothing like replaces just talking to like enthusiasts and like fans, and like going to those spaces, and I continue to believe the absolute best thing you can do is to get a really nice actual play of your game like done. I really believe that's like so important, you know. Something easily shareable, man, that's no matter what you have to pay to get that done. I mean, a lot of people do it for free, right? But assuming you want to like pay your players or your GM or whatever a little bit of money, it will be worth it. I promise you, it's going to pay you back. So yeah.
And then that just lives, and you can do whatever you want
forever. Yeah, yeah, it's always there.
So let's get into sort of like the history of the Gauntlet, because it's been so long for people. You know, this is only the second time G+ has come up on this podcast, and I feel a little bummed. But yeah, like, so what was kind of the original impetus for the Gauntlet?
Yeah, well, so it pre-existed me. It was in its form then, this would have been around 2013, early 2013. It was a G+ community that was based in Houston, Texas, and it was essentially like the G+ community was essentially just like a kind of, hey, let's get together and play a game, like message board kind of thing, you know, for local role players. And it was defunct. Like, nobody had posted there for ages. And I had just moved to Houston, and I needed, I was really into like, I was really, really like into story games, and I had just kind of come back to role-playing games after not being involved in role-playing games for a long time. And I was really excited about like the games of like by the Bakers and by Jason Morningstar and by Emily Care Boss and folks like that, right? I was really hyped about those games, and I wanted people to play them with. And so I had just moved to Houston, and at that time, every role-playing game group in Houston was Pathfinder. It was just Pathfinder. That's all it was. There was nothing but Pathfinder, right? And so I found this one group, and I just posted. I was like, hey, I'm really interested in playing this game. I think it was I want to say it was the Shabalhiri Roach by Jason Morningstar, but it might have been something else. But I was like, hey, I've got this game. I'd like to play it. If anyone's interested, just let me know. And someone in the group was like, well, hey, I've got a space, like we can work at my employer's office on Fridays, like after hours, right? Like we have access to the building, so after hours we can just meet in our office space and we can play there. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And we did that. Regrettably, that place turned the AC off on the weekends. So that was not always the most pleasant thing, but it worked it did work though. We got together. I brought my game. We played. We all had a good time. The people who showed up were like had never played a story game or heard of the concept of a story game, and so that was all kind of a new thing. I was kind of getting into it too, but we did that for a while. We would meet like every Friday in this office park, and we did that for months, and it was great. We were having a good time. We were playing games that no one had ever heard of, that we were all kind of discovering for the first time on G+ mostly, and then that once a week game became a twice a week thing. On Wednesdays we moved to playing in this like bar restaurant thing, and then eventually we added a Sunday game. And so for pretty much like the back half of 2013 all the way through 2015, we were playing like 3 times a week. We were meeting in Houston, and that was the Gauntlet. And I was organizing it all, and I was, and I had a couple people who kind of helped me organize it, but I was mostly like kind of organizing the meetups and stuff. And we just did that for a long time. And eventually that Wednesday meetup especially, it grew to like have like 4 or 5 tables going, whenever, like every Wednesday, like playing different games, like Monster Hearts, a lot of Dungeon World, a lot of Monster Hearts, Monster of the Week, a lot of PBTA. That kind of became kind of our mainstay. And then I moved from Houston. So I moved from Houston in late 2015, and I wanted to keep touch with the community that I'd helped build. And so we kind of made the Gauntlet more of an online thing, or it became kind of an online thing. And so we sort of set up this online play calendar, and we kind of got good at playing games online as opposed to face-to-face. And then that was also around the same time we started the Gauntlet podcast or thereabouts. And then shortly after that, we started this podcast that was focused on Dungeon World called Discern Realities, which was great fun, and I think was a lot of people's introduction to Dungeon World. And so it kind of became this more of an online community with podcasts essentially, and that was like the first few years of the Gauntlet. Yeah,
and so I think like people, if you weren't there in the G+ days, pre, 2013, 2015, 2017, I think it's hard for people to conceptualize like how difficult it was to find spaces for things like this. And that's why, G+ like felt so big, because it was so central for a lot. It was so easy, and it made things so accessible for a lot of reasons. It was an accident of design by the creators that the community took and shaped and used to what we needed.
Yeah, I think at the end of G+, it was only the role-playing game community there. I don't know that anybody else was there. Yeah,
I feel like everybody I knew on G+ that I didn't know separately was a role play. Like I can think of like 5 people from G+ that I'm like, yeah, they're just from role playing. That's it. That is explicitly the way I never had
a single friend on G+ who wasn't a role-playing game person. I would tell people like about the Gauntlet, and they'd be like, and we'd have to start with what's Google Plus, it's that kind of thing, right? So
okay, so okay, so they decided.
So it's like Facebook, but yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's like Facebook, but they don't start wars.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And also Google's been ignoring it for the last few years. So there's that part too.
It 100% had the vibe of a project manager who was high enough to get their thing greenlit, but then also immediately forgotten. Yeah. Just like, what?
That's what Google was in those days, though. Remember Wave? Did you ever see Google Wave.
Oh my God.
There's lots of stuff like that, right? Like
There's
they would just
so many.
a thing that would go away.
There's a great website that just catalogs all of the things that Google has killed over the years, and it's just like, oh yeah, I remember to use that all the time. Wild.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Google Reader.
Yeah. But no, yeah, the early days were that was the early days of the Gauntlet. It was very focused on like play, just playing games, face to face and eventually online. So,
do you think that focus on playing just here's a game, I brought it, we're gonna play it? Do you think that like is why that community built so strong and has stayed so strong through however many iterations and moves and platforms and changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a sort of like, to me, it's all about like, there's this issue of like, I don't know. To me, it's always been a question of like credibility, right? Like, a lot of like people have the idea of, oh, I'm gonna like run some games on Meetup, or I'm gonna like start a new weekly game or whatever, or I'm gonna go to the game store and organize some games. A lot of people have that idea, right? But the difference with the Gauntlet and a lot of those folks is we did it. We stuck to it, right? Like we were very consistent, right? Like if a thing went up on Meetup, that Meetup happened, right? If I said I was running a game, that game got ran. If one of my fellow game runners was like, I'm gonna run 4 sessions of Monster Hearts, like we made sure that happened, right? Like there was we had a really, really like we were really like in those early days very strict about like, if you say you're going to do a thing, you're going to do the thing, right? Like, or you don't get to do it again, right? Like, so it was really kind of strict in that way, but it was necessary because I had been in other spaces, not related to role-playing games, but like other like activist spaces and other hobbies, where people would have an idea and be really excited about that idea, but then they would never follow through, right? And so our superpower was follow through, right, in the beginning, but eventually, especially once we started doing podcasting, that sort of credibility started to be more about like our ideas about games as well, not just our commitment to playing them and following through on our commitments, but also like, here are our ideas about role-playing games. Here's what we think about role-playing games, and here's how we feel about gameplay and what we think is good gameplay and what we'd like to emulate in our own games, and what we'd like to emulate in our own games that we run and now make. And so we started to develop that sort of credibility there. And then so that when we got to the publishing part of it, that I think we came to it with a lot of built-in, that credibility helped us like have a lot of like built-in support, basically, right? Like people knew that we've delivered in these other ways, and so we can deliver in this way too, and that is something that is not easy to do. That is not something that anyone listening to this can easily replicate, right? We spent a lot of time building that up and making that be the way it is, and so, but that's a big part of it, and I think the real like glue and the thing that kind of like really made it all work is, yeah, we're organizing games, yeah, we're talking about games, and yeah, okay, now years later we're publishing games, but we always kind of come back to talk about our experiences in our community spaces, whether it was Slack back in the day or Discord now or G+ really back in the day. Like we always kind of come back together and we talk as a community about our experiences, and that helps us develop what is a really particular play culture in the Gauntlet, right? That I don't think is replicated anywhere, though we certainly try to telegraph it in our games. We have a really particular play culture, and that play culture sort of becomes the thing that binds it all together, right? Like that's like people like, when you sit down to play a game that I've scheduled or a game that I've published, you can expect certain things, right? You can expect certain things. And so that credibility, that sort of reliability, that play culture that we've developed, that's the reason why it works, right? It truly is a community, I mean, and we've had our ups and downs like every community does. But at the end of the day, we always come back to just we just really love playing role-playing games. And like, I mean, it's really it. I mean, it sounds so trite and simple when I say it out loud like that, but it's the truth, I mean, like I wouldn't do any of this if I didn't also still get to play games 4 times a week. Right? Like, yeah, okay, Brindlewood Bay, huge hit. I love it. I'm glad it's a huge hit. It's really helped us a lot. But or The Between, public access, like these games, like people love these games. It's great. I love it. And I love making them. But at the end of the day, I like to just sit and run a game, mm-hmm. And so, and I think people know that, people know that. People know that, like, at the end of the day, Jason Cordova is here to have fun playing role-playing games, and so I think that also I think that's a sort of it. I think people pick up on that, and they know, they know I'm for real.
They know you're about it.
Yeah, I'm about it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So
big poster, Jason Cordova is here to run a game.
I'm here to run a game. I'm here to run a game specifically. I'm not much of a player. I'm a much better GM than I am a player. So.
That the diligence you talked about at the start of saying, mm-hmm. like building that community of saying, if you say you're going to be there, you're going to be there, you're going to do the thing. Mm-hmm. That is my big advice. When people would say, like, I ran Pathfinder Society stuff for almost a decade. And people would say, like, how do you build those spaces? How do you build recurring players? How do you build like a community? And that diligence, that reliability was always the thing that I would come back to, was like, if you go to a store and you say, we want to run games, the second Saturday from 2 to 5, mm-hmm. When the second Saturday rolls around and it's 2:00, your butthead better be there.
You better be there.
Right. If no one shows up,
yeah.
Oh, well, you try again the next mm-hmm. second Saturday, because there's nothing worse than them saying, oh, some people came into play and you weren't there.
Yeah, that's exactly
that's
right.
that. You're done. You're burned.
Yeah, it's true. And like to me, what I find is really like, taking that from a kind of different perspective. A lot of people have this thing where they like will organize just like a home game. There's no public aspect to it, but they're organizing a home game, and they are in the middle of their campaign or whatever, and someone doesn't show up, or 2 people can't show up that week, and so they cancel the session, right? And I just feel very strongly you can't do that. like maybe you can't get around it. Maybe that person's presence is really, really critical in that moment in the story. But I'm going to suggest that 90% of the time you can still play your session, right? Like I talked about this on Fear of a Black Dragon. I think Tom and I did an episode about this, I don't know, earlier this year, where we talked about like, still play your session, right? Like play your session, like find a way to do it. Maybe if you can't play the game you're meant to be playing, find something else to do as a one shot, because what you want to do is you don't want to lose any momentum, like, because it's so easy to like just lose momentum, so Joe doesn't show up one week and so we cancel one week, but then the next week that maybe gives Sue permission to not show up one week, and so you're like, okay, well, we'll cancel this week, and next thing you know, you've gone 3 or 4 weeks and you haven't had a session, right? And you might as well just pack it up at that point, right? Like you don't want to ever lose any momentum, and so even in your home games, like I really, really strongly recommend like you find a way to like still get to the table, whatever that looks like. Like there's lots of good strategies for like accounting for a missing character. Talked about it on Fear of a Black Dragon. It's that episode. I think it's the it's the first episode we did this year. So whatever the first one was from 2025, we talked about this. But maybe you play a one shot, whatever. You don't want to lose any momentum. And also, here's the thing: if you still show up and play, Joe, whoever canceled, or the person who regularly cancels, or who maybe like is a little shakier on their availability, they will start to get FOMO about it, right? And they will fix their schedule so that they can start coming, Mm-hmm. And so, but that doesn't happen if you don't stick to it yourself, So,
yeah, I agree 100%. Like, continue as someone who is currently trying to get a home game back together after a holiday break, to let you know how that's going.
That'll get you. Yeah, holiday break will get you, right?
That momentum is so important, and it's critical. So easy to lose. Mm-hmm. Especially in a game full of adults. When you have,
everyone's got things. everybody has like I get it. You've got a schedule, you've got kids. I get it. But if you're the organizer of the game, you got to find a way to get to the table. You've got to find a way to do it. And the players will eventually get there, but you have got to be the one, you know?
Yeah. It's that sort of advice that's like, this is a little rough to hear, but it's ultimately going to lead to the thing that you want. And if this is the thing that you want, then these are the things you have to do.
That is true.
And that's, you know, I had heard for years, I remember hearing in you know, various places on social media, it was always funny to hear. I feel like I never hear it now. The sort of like negative opinions of the Gauntlet, of the people that you know, you mentioned like the very specific play culture. I remember hearing from some, you know, I don't want to say some specific people that sounds like I'm talking about a specific person. I just mean in very specific instances, people would be like, oh, you know, they're very full of themselves. They're very haughty. They're very strict. They're very whatever. And it's like, yeah, but also that, like you said, that is what leads to that sort of specific play culture that leads to that that attentiveness, that you know, credibility.
Yeah, that's it, right? That's it. I mean, like, I don't know, like, with Gauntlet's been around in its current form, it's like, you know, post me finding it form, has been around for over 10 years, right? And there's like,
you can't argue with the results, right?
In 10 years, I've had to weather so many opinions, so many things over the years of like what we're doing or not doing, like personal things about me, things about the community. I've seen it all and heard it all. And you know what? The Gauntlet's still here. The Gauntlet's never going away. We're going through like a nasty little business period right now because we have all these absurd tariffs we're trying to negotiate, but the Gauntlet's still going to be here. You know, like, you know, and it's because at the end of the day, I think we just all like enough people care about what we're doing, and if your relationship to role-playing games is I want to just play them and have fun with them, then we're for you. You know, like that's it. Right. Like we have no other agenda.
Where's the anti-Gauntlet? Like, if all these people that have all these naysayers, where is the thing that's like the Gauntlet that's the opposite?
That's the opposite. Yeah, I mean, like my thing is like I don't know. Like I don't know. Like I don't know what else we can do apart from hundreds of hours of podcasts where I and my co-hosts talk at length about our philosophy of gaming and we convey who we are as people, or the hundreds of hours of play sessions we've scheduled over the years, or the games that we publish. Like, I don't know, like what more communication is required of me to like, you know, like, and maybe it's not, here's like our thing. Here's our values. Here's our stances. Oh, I don't like that. Like we've put it all here. There's nothing else to be said, you know, like I don't know what else you want, you know, like, but again, it's like, I always just say, like, look, like this is it's about play. It always goes back to play for me. And if you are here to play a role-playing game, then I am happy to have you. Lately, it's more like our role-playing games that we publish, but that's not even the case as much in recent months, because we've started to kind of like with this new Gauntlet podcast, second edition, we've started to like kind of circle back to looking at games beyond our normal, you know, like bubble, you know. So while we were trying to like get our publishing business off the ground, we were really, really focused on Gauntlet published games. But we've started to kind of go back to like earlier times when we were like focusing on just like indie role-playing games and, you know, in general, you know. So it's always changing. Things are always like moving and doing different things, but the thing that never changes is we just love role-playing games and we like to play them, and we want to talk to you about playing them.
And the Gauntlet does a thing that I think is great with podcasting, is the idea of having a podcast around a very specific idea and then hitting the end of that very specific idea and then being like, we're done. We did it. There you go. We're stopping.
Yep. Yeah. We're a no fluff, no BS podcast network. Like everybody on our podcast teams has they know that the goal is to get in and get out. That's how we do it. You know, like there's space for like more chatty podcasts, obviously, right? Like there's space for all that, but what we deliver is just something different. We just we have a really particular focus, and we like to get in and get out. Yeah.
Oh yeah. If the goal of a podcast is like, we're going to talk about the news every week, that's your goal. And hey, guess what? There's going to be new news every week. It's always funny when you see a podcast that's like, we're going to talk about every book by whoever. And then they talk about all the books. And it's like, well, here we're going to, and I'm like, no. You talked about all the books.
Yeah.
Start a new one then. But it's that. And I think that goes back to just the sort of credibility of the Gauntlet is like, here's our podcast on that. That's what it's about. If you want that, we got another one over here. Do you want this?
Right.
Do you want this? Boom. And that's
I'm here for people who just want to engage with the hobby like I do, like that's it, like, so.
I think that's so important to like building spaces, right? Is setting your expectations and what's going to happen, and then sticking to that, and saying, hey, you can come in here and hang out and we can have a good time. And if that's what we're all here for, that's great. That's going to go great. Everybody's going to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I want to shift gears. We talked about the Gauntlet, and that's great. I'm just going to talk to the listener for a second. I'm talking to Jason fucking Cordova, and I'm freaking out a little bit. Okay, back to the podcast. So Brindlewood Bay, I said we're going to talk about Brindlewood Bay. I'm going to stop that immediately to talk about something else. Something that I love about games from the Gauntlet is every time a new one comes out, I feel like it is such an event in the greater space. Like when Trophy came out, it was such a thing and everybody was talking about Trophy. And when Brindlewood Bay came out, it's such a thing and everybody's talking about Brindlewood Bay. It's such an exciting time. How do I want to phrase this in a fun way, but I don't think I'm smart enough to come up with it in the moment. How do you deal with like the celebrity factor of it? Like, how do you deal with the idea of just like when a new Gauntlet game comes out, like it's a huge deal.
Well, weirdly, it's so funny because like, I would first of all say it is the most micro celebrity imaginable. Let's just put that out there. But so like if you Google Jason Cordova, if you Google my name, I am not even the first Jason. I'm not even the most noteworthy Jason Cordova. Right?
This is true. As a person who did it today, this is true.
The most noteworthy Jason Cordova is this like sci-fi author who occasionally forwards email to me that got to him by mistake. Right?
That's funny.
Like, yeah. So that's one thing. But actually, it's so funny because like when we put something out, I've actually trained myself to not expect any kind of feedback for weeks because it takes people time to like read it and process it, So I'm actually like really, I've gotten really good at like putting out a new scenario or a new game or whatever, and just sort of like putting it out there and just like moving on to the next thing, right? Because you have to give people time to like catch up with you, right? So that's one thing. Another thing, though, I'll also make, and I think is worth pointing out, is I don't hang out in non-Gauntlet spaces, and so to the Gauntlet, I'm just Jason, and like there's like I'm the guy you message when you I'm the guy you message because like Discord auto flagged your comment or what.
Jason, I can't get into this set of channels. I think my role's weird. It's
right. It's like that, right? So it's like I don't like perceive it that way, right? So it actually always comes as a big surprise to me. Even still, it comes as a big surprise to me whenever I find people being excited about one of our games, like outside of our circle, right? Like that always surprises me. It's delightful. I love it, but it's always a surprise because I just don't know that people are, like when Public Access came out, for example, probably my most personal game. Like of all the games I've ever been involved with, it's the most like personal game. Like it is so much of just my brain and emotion, right? And I had I didn't know it was getting the uptake that it was getting. Like I had no idea. And until I started to see like a couple of like bigger name people like finding it and playing it, and I was like, holy shit, like Public Access managed to break through to people, like I didn't know that was happening, so there's a lot of like just being so insular in the Gauntlet that I'm just not aware of it, right? So there's a negative part of that too, though, right? Like the really downside of that is I just say whatever the fuck I want on Blue Sky or Twitter or wherever, right? And I don't think about it in terms of like people having an expectation of of me, you know, like I'm just like whatever. I'm just like I don't, you know,
you're like I'm doing a Blue Sky post and someone is like Jason Cordova just said, and you're
yeah, I know, yeah, like and I like it's not so much happened on Blue Sky, but like on Twitter it was such a thing, right? Where like I would just like say something totally to me just totally innocuous, like something that was just a big nothing, you know, like I stopped thinking about it as soon as I said it, you know, and like people being like either really upset about it or like really like, oh, like I said the most profound thing, you know. Like and to me it was just like a big nothing, you know. So yeah, there's that part of it, right? Like it's not like I don't know if it's I don't know if it's celebrity as much as it's just like I guess like now I've reached the point where very big names in our industry know what my thing is. And that is like the closest I've ever felt to like, oh shit, like this is like, you know, like Keith Baker, big fan of Brindlewood Bay, right? Like when Keith Baker reaches out to you because he wants to like talk about Brindlewood Bay or like wants to play Brindlewood Bay, like you're like, oh, like something's happened here, right? Like you like you've achieved something here.
Did you mean the sci-fi writer or
which Jason was talking about? Yeah, you know, but you have like moments like that, right? Like I it's not announced yet, but like one of our games is getting covered on a really, really big YouTube channel soon. And that's gonna be another one of those moments where it's like, oh yeah, like people are like finding your thing, you know, and so it's weird, but also like, but it's ultimately it's very gratifying, right? I mean, like what I like even more is I love when people like send me pictures of I ran Brindlewood Bay for my local group and we all dressed up as our characters, or we all like we made tea and scones or whatever, you know, like you know, like I love that, you know, or like the thing that people do with public access is they'll make like their own like videos, you know, they'll make their own like little Odyssey tapes of their own like weird analog horror videos or whatever, or they'll make like, or they'll have like little handouts that are kind of like, you know, kind of vintagey 80s handouts or whatever. Like that's what I love. I love that. Like to me, that's like the coolest thing in the world. Like I don't like, and those are people who may never know my name, and that's great. I love that they just love my game. and my game inspired them enough to do something like that, you know? So it's cool. It's fun. It's very gratifying. And because I never venture out beyond the Gauntlet, I don't know what people are saying about me or my stuff outside of my spaces. Every now and then I hear about it, but I'm just like,
that's probably for the best.
I think it's for the best. Yeah.
There's a part of me that wonders like, oh, is there a bit of lost marketing when you're not able to like capture a moment, but also does that mean you don't see everything people on social media say? And that's probably a fair trade.
You know, I've come to the conclusion. It took me a while to get here, but I eventually did. After the sort of like the worst days of Twitter, right? There were some grim years on Twitter. I came to the conclusion eventually that my work, I have to just let my work speak for itself, you know? Like at the end of the day, I just have to let my work speak for itself. And I've had to learn to, you have to learn to like not react to everything. You have to learn to like, just kind of let things go. And, you know, like, okay, somebody didn't love Brindlewood Bay's mystery system. Okay. Every now and then I get frustrated by that because I get like, it's like the constant thing I always have to deal with. And every now and then I get frustrated and I crack a little bit, but 90% of the time I just let it go. I'm like, okay, they don't get it. It's not for them, whatever. I don't have to convince you, you know, like that's kind of where I'm at, right? It's like, okay, sure. You're not convinced by something that I've created. Okay, it's not my job to convince you. I wrote the game and I've done hundreds of hours of support content on YouTube and podcasting for this game. And so if you want to engage with it, cool. If you don't, I've done everything I can. there's nothing else for me to do here.
The book was you convincing them and it didn't work.
You just realize at a certain point that like you can't, there's no utility in trying to convince people of things like that, you know? And at the end of the day, like, I don't know, like I know what works for me at the game table and I know what I like and I try to convey that in my games, and enough people are into it that I can have this as a business, but there's always going to be those people who are not going to be into it, and that's fine. Like, that's fine. everyone gets to enjoy the hobby however they want to do it. So, and I kind of feel that way, like when it gets to be like kind of personal too, like, you know, like you can't be a sort of quasi public figure in this industry for as many years as I have been and have people not have an opinion about you, you know? And I always just go back to the famous RuPaul quote, like, whatever people have to say about me is none of my business. You know, and I've had to you have to really take that on board, you know? There's just no getting around it. You know?
There was a big thing, I should figure out what episode it was in. There's a big thing in the Friends of the Table podcast that I listened to a bit ago. Austin Walker was talking about how even sort of separate from Friends of the Table, his actual paid podcast for people who don't know. Yeah. But you should. If you're listening to this podcast, you don't listen to Friends of the Table, I don't know what you're doing. Please do that. Yeah. And he was talking about kind of it spawned out of his time at Giant Bomb, but kind of solidified in Friends of the Table, where he was like, I kind of need to exist outside of fan spaces. I need to not be in the place where people who don't know me as a person share their opinion about me.
Yeah.
And it's one of those statements that like crystallizes a lot of things, you know, where you realize a lot of the ways people interact on social media and the ways some people do and some people don't. And it just sort of crystallized like, oh yeah, there's probably a lot of people talking a lot of things about someone with his amount of big air quotes, like we've been talking about, celebrity.
Oh, he's like 50 times more than me, right?
And if you allowed that in your brain,
right,
you would lose it. You couldn't function as a person.
You got to stay out of the comments, right? Like that's the thing, right? Stay out of the comments. I mean, like, you know, like, I mean, even at like my scale, I like sometimes like something will start like on a Discord, right? Like, which is the main, our Discord's kind of the only place I hang out on a regular basis online. And, even there, like some people will like kind of like want to talk about the rules and maybe they're doing it in a way that is not super in good faith or super productive, right? And even there, I try to like just rely on the other members of the community to kind of like take point on that, you know, because when I say something, it's different, right? Like if I chime in, it means something different than if someone else does, you know? And a lot of times, like I learned this years ago, I might be saying something in a way that I consider to be very objective and in good faith and practical and trying to solve a problem, but it gets perceived as something totally different because I said it. Right. You know? Like it's not getting taken the way that I intended to express it, you know, just because I said it, right? And I think that's something that I've had to really learn to like deal with, you know, and it's not easy, but I don't know. At the end of the day, I've really just landed on this idea of like, my work just has to speak for itself. Like my games, my podcasts, my APs, there's so much of my work out there. It has to speak for itself. That is my communication. There's like, I don't need to do anything else, you know? So.
Yeah. And that makes sense. Like you said, especially when you have so much of it. And I think like that's part of a point of a game. You know, it's like what things do you find important in play? What mechanics, what values, what systems, whatever, you know, what do you find valuable and important? And hey, guess what? It's in the game. I put it in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about Brindlewood Bay. Sometimes I get a little ahead of myself, and then I realize, wait, no, I had 2 more questions. That's how it goes. So Brindlewood Bay is great. I was rereading the non-Kickstarter version, and then I was reading the Kickstarter version, and like Jason said at the beginning, they're like basically the same. They're basically the same game, in a way that I think like speaks to the value of being a member of the Gauntlet. I think is a great selling point to be like, hey, if you want to like play cool games with cool people. When you get access to these games, you're getting the game, you know, you're getting what it's going to be, with very small minutia and, you know, probably layout and language.
And art and support material, basically, right? Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a friend of mine not that long ago where he was telling me about Brindlewood Bay. I hadn't heard of it, and he was like, yeah, like I played this with a somebody in a Discord, and he was telling us all about it. And I was like, this game sounds amazing. It also sounds like the work of a madman. Because it sounds like, for the premise for people who don't know is the players are all elderly women who are members of a book club fan club for a fictional character who live in the small New England town of Brindlewood Bay and battle occult Cthulian-esque cultists and horrors.
Right. While solving murder mysteries.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. While solving the murder mysteries propagated by the cult and others. Yeah. And I think when you describe it that way, it sounds like you took one of those like magnet word containers and just sort of threw it up there. Right. Yeah. And we're like grandmas who fight Cthulhu, and you're like, there we go.
Right.
I think the first question is just, Jason, how did you come up with grandmas who fight Cthulhu?
So the original pitch line of Brindlewood Bay was Murder, She Wrote meets Cthulhu, or Cthulhu, She Wrote, or Murder, She Wrote meets H.P. Lovecraft or Cosmic Horror or whatever, right? It was like Murder, She Wrote was really important to it, right? I actually don't remember where the core idea came from. I do remember how it came about, like, or I remember kind of when it came about. Like, I was originally making, I started working on The Between, which is my game about monster hunters in Victorian era London, which that's actually getting ready to pre-order pretty soon. But I was making my game The Between. This was like late 2018, early 2019. And I'd been working on that for a while, and but I was running into this like problem of, I knew that I wanted it to be like an investigation game, like the characters were not just fighting monsters, they had to investigate the monsters, and but I also knew that I had like some kind of competing ideas for how I wanted the kind of fundamental mystery system to work, because I had a lot of problems with like how mystery systems and investigation systems work in role-playing games, right? And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a smaller game, and that now has to go in big quotes, a smaller game. I wanted to make a smaller game that I could just try the mystery system out with, right? Because The Between had like playbooks, and I'd written all kinds of stuff for it, and I didn't want to have to reinvent the wheel every time while I was trying to sort out the mystery component. And so I wanted to make a smaller mystery-focused game that would just let me try out some of these ideas. And I do distinctly remember being on Twitter and kind of just talking about this, and kind of like soliciting ideas, like what would be a cool idea for a smaller mystery game. And I don't remember who it was, but someone said, oh, well, there's never been like a Murder, She Wrote type game, like a game of like a sort of like cozy murder mystery game. There have been games like that, but like that was a relatively unexplored territory in role playing games. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And then I remember someone else said like made a joke about like Murder, She Wrote and like Call of Cthulhu, right? Like they kind of made like a little joke, and I remember that's when I kind of landed on. I was like, oh, what if it was Murder, She Wrote meets Cthulhu, like what? And then very quickly it kind of turned into this, like there's this like joke in the TV show Murder, She Wrote. There's this joke that that Jessica Fletcher, who is the main character, that Jessica Fletcher was the one doing all the murders, because wherever she was at, a murder happened, and like how is it possible that like in hundreds of episodes of TV, she's always there when the murder happens, right? And so that was like the joke of like Murder, She Wrote. And so that joke got me thinking. I was like, what if the reason why there are so many murders in this town is because there's an occult conspiracy behind them? Like that's the reason for all the murders, right? So that was really what it was. It was kind of like just playing around with this idea of like an old TV show, nostalgia, cozy murder mystery, kind of trying to come up with like why are all these murders happening? Like the fundamental funny thing about a setting like that is, why are there so many murders? and then somebody kind of jokingly talking about Call of Cthulhu and Murder, She Wrote, and that's how I came up with it. And that early version of the game, had like, I don't know, like 6 mysteries or something. And that early version that was published in like, I guess it was like late 2019, early 2020. It had like 6 mysteries, and then the conspiracy part of it, you just kind of came up with by yourself as the GM. You sort of like, you came up with that part of it, like, on your own. It wasn't really well fleshed out. And then we did the Kickstarter version where, the game people had been playing the game for a couple of years. It was reasonably popular, and I got to kind of get a better, got to learn my game a little better. And then I was like, okay, now I know how to like present the conspiracy part of it. Now I know how to like wrap in those elements a little more strongly. And of course, we also just published a lot more mysteries too. So the eventual version of Brindlewood Bay that came out on Kickstarter, and its companion book, Nephews in Peril, had like, it's got like 40 plus mysteries and then like 6 different types of conspiracy, right? So yeah, but yeah, that's where it came from though. It was like just a lot of like kind of, I was trying to meet this design goal for the Between, like trying to find a shorter mystery focused game that would help me try out some ideas, and then just kind of chattering and joking around with people about Murder, She Wrote. So that's pretty much it.
I love. This is the designer thing that makes me laugh all the time of like how did you design this game? Well, I was working on a different game.
Yep.
And then I bolted awake at 3:00 in the morning and I scribbled down all of these notes and then I made this. Mm-hmm. It is funny to see the commonalities all the time. It's always funny.
All of my games, like I said earlier, all of my games are in communication with one another. They're always in conversation with one another. Like the eventual version of Brindlewood Bay. So we did eventually get the Between out in digital form, and a lot of the ideas in that game ended up in the eventual Kickstarter version of Brindlewood Bay. And then a lot of the ideas in the Kickstarter version of Brindlewood Bay got wrapped up into the digital version of Public Access. And now we're coming out with this like kind of, we've been playtesting like this newer edition of Public Access, and a lot of its ideas are informing the other games. And so, yeah, they're constantly like kind of talking to each other in that way. Yeah.
What was the point with Brindlewood Bay where you felt that like this has the juice?
Yeah.
This is something.
Interesting. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. The thing was, the big test case of Brindlewood Bay was the mystery system, right? So the way it works, for folks who don't know, is each of the mysteries does not have a pre-planned solution, right? We don't know who did the murder, right? The GM doesn't know who did the murder, or the keeper, as we call them, doesn't know who did the murder. The players don't know no one knows who did the murder. And as you play, the players collect clues, and then you have a discussion as a play group using those clues about who you think did the murder, right? And so in some sense, you're kind of like creating the mystery as you're solving the mystery, right? And that was the part that I didn't know was going to work. It is the part that I still, to this day, have to convince people of whenever I deign to. I don't anymore, but I would always have to like try to convince people like this. Trust me, this is a cool way of doing mysteries, right? And so that was the part I wasn't sure was going to work. But basically, the first time I play tested it, I ran it for a group and we did it, and just that conversation that we had, like where everybody's just like bouncing ideas back and forth, and like we're kind of laughing and talking, and we're talking about this suspect and that suspect, and but that suspect was over here doing this, and so what does this clue mean? Well, maybe this clue means this, and maybe this means this, and eventually we came up with a solution that we thought of who did the murder, and then we rolled some dice to see if we're correct. But that process of like everybody just chatting and talking about the solution to the mystery, as if there was a solution to the mystery already written, and there's not. That was when I knew, I was like, okay, this is going to work. Like, this is going to work. We're doing something really different here. There were other story games before Brindlewood Bay that had like kind of emergent mystery mechanics, right? Syra and Lovecraft-esque, probably a few others I can't think of the top of my head. But Brindlewood Bay, what we did in Brindlewood Bay was we did it in a way that was really easy to do at the table, really, really fun, and done in a way that like kind of makes it feel like, yes, we know the mysteries don't have a pre-written solution, but by the time we're done, it feels like it did, right? Like it feels like it was always that way, right? And so I knew I'd kind of figured it out at that point. And so from a sort of gameplay or from a sort of design perspective, that's when I knew that moment. I was like, okay, I got a winner here. This is it. This is it. From a sort of like sales and marketing standpoint, that's a little trickier to pin down, because I think in the early days for Brindlewood Bay, it was a lot of just honestly trying to convince people that playing a group of elderly women was something they'd want to do at the role-playing game table, right? Like you'd be surprised how many people were not into that, right? And I had to really like stick to my guns on that. Like there was people who wanted it to be like, well, what if you could like make a man or a kid or a young person or whatever. I was like, no, I'm sticking to my guns on this. You're playing elderly women. That's it. Like
old women.
Yeah, you're playing old women because I have a particular design goal here, and that's the way it's going to be. And so that was a lot of the early days, was just like convincing people that this could be fun, right? But yeah, it was always kind of just humming along. People in the Gauntlet playing it. Eventually, people like Justin Alexander played it, and it kind of started to reach out to a wider audience. Some people on Twitch started playing it, so it was kind of getting played. And then, of course, we did the Kickstarter, which was a huge hit, and that was truly when I knew. I was like, okay, this is for real. I can actually do something here, So yeah. That's
a great marker, if nothing else. A big old successful Kickstarter. That'll tell you.
It's a very objective marker. There's no,
right.
Like it's a very obvious thing.
How much do people like it? Well, that seems like a lot.
That's it. Well, and it's and I owe so much to Brindlewood Bay, because like without Brindlewood Bay, there wouldn't, Trophy was a hit too, and Trophy came first, but Trophy was a hit, but Trophy was maligned by the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And the pandemic happened like basically the next month after we were finished crowdfunding Trophy, right?
That's all done.
And suddenly everyone's schedules were effed up. Suddenly everybody was like, the supply chain was wrecked. Like everything was bad. Like it just like was really bad. And because of like how disrupted the supply chain especially was, Trophy was not profitable, right? Like Trophy, we didn't make any money on Trophy, even though it was like very successful for what it was. We didn't make any money on it. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know if we're going to be able to keep doing this, right? Mm-hmm. Because like, and it was Brindlewood Bay that like made it possible for us to keep doing this, because Brindlewood Bay was a big hit. And so I was like, okay, we have the juice to do this. And I kind of pivoted at that point to sort of like make Brindlewood Bay the real centerpiece of like everything we were doing, right? So, the Between uses the same mystery mechanics. Public Access is like not Public Access, the Between, and Brindlewood Bay all take place in the same universe, but it's really obvious from Brindlewood Bay and Public Access that they're in the same universe, And so we were also kind of creating this like, setting as well. And so, yeah, like we started to develop, the sort of carved from Brindlewood design ethos, and we started to do podcasts about it, and we started to just sort of make it really the center of what Gauntlet publishing was, And so, yeah, I owe a lot to Brindlewood Bay. Brindlewood Bay has been a huge like part of what the Gauntlet is. So much so that our website is now either gauntlet-rpg.com or brindlewoodbay.com. Like brindlewoodbay.com will also take you to our website, right? So
listen, capture that audience, capture that attention. Well, I think that's smart.
The way I look at all of our games, like, yeah, Brindlewood Bay was kickstarted a few years ago, and the books have been out for a while. But I always look at it like someone new discovers it every single day, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's new to someone every single day, and I treat all of our games that way, right? Like to me they are all fresh and new and worthy of my attention, right? And so yeah, I try not to just move on from things, even Trophy, as much as I love Trophy, like Trophy's like one of my favorite games of all time. Like I love it. But, from a business standpoint, it was really hard. But that said, even trophy, like I've managed to at least like to get trophy on a footing to where like if we want to do more with trophy, we can, and I've done that by just continuing to play it, continuing to talk about it, continuing to try to put it in front of people's eyes, people, because again, like, going back to another RuPaul quote, RuPaul always says someone turns 18 every single day. And what that means is every single day, someone is in a place in their life to discover your thing, right? So I treat everything like this could be the, like it's not new to me, but it's new to someone, And so, but Brindlewood Bay really anchors a lot of what we do. And, it's, there's a really strong creative community around it. There's a lot of third party content around that game, and around the Between too. And there's lots of Carve from Brindlewood games out there, not as much as I would like, but I think increasingly you're going to see more and more Carve from Brindlewood games. And so in some sense, Brindlewood Bay is also really just important to the hobby and the industry, So I feel like a certain obligation to it,
How did you come up with Carve from the Brindlewood? Because I love snappy little system names for PBTA stuff like that.
That was someone named Sabine Vocal came up with that. I believe. Oh, was it Sabine? Sabine came up with Rooted in Trophy. I know that for sure. But yeah, someone
that's
in our
also
community,
very good.
Yeah, it is pretty good, right? Somebody in our community just came up with that, and I was like, perfect. That was it.
I love snappy little names like that. It's so fun.
Well, it is. And like, I think for a lot of people, especially if you're kind of like, if you've been in like Powered by the Apocalypse space for a long time, like, I think that like, it's kind of like a wink joke, to give your system a little name like that, but it actually has a lot of valence, right? I mean, Carve from Brindlewood is a little silly in a sense, but also a lot of people know that three-letter CFB, right? Like people say CFB, that means something to a lot of people. So it goes back to that pesky marketing thing. Never get away from it. So
I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you have a very like protective and emotional connection to like everything the Gauntlet does. Like even the games that you don't specifically work on, but the games that like you publish as a company and the games you help sort of get out the door and get finished and all of this.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the third party stuff that comes out of that? Like,
I love
do
it.
you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, because I'm curious. Do you? Because obviously you love it. You said, but I was curious if you distanced from it in a way that we've talked about for social media, and I'm always curious with like creators when they put out a work and then there's iterative designs by other people on those works, like how do you approach those as a creator? Do you do you allow them to influence you? Do you push them away for fear of whatever? That seems like a really complicated relationship for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for one thing, a lot of the CFB games, especially, well, and Trophy too, for that matter, a lot of the like third-party games and scenarios that come out for these things, a lot of it does originate from our Discord, right? So a lot of the stuff, even though strictly speaking it's third-party and it's not published by the Gauntlet, it got created in our spaces, right? Like anybody who's making a CFB game or a Rooted in Trophy game, they can like get on our Discord and get their own channel for it and kind of do their own design process and build their own little tiny core group of people who are super into it, right? In our Discord. Like, I love that. So in some sense, we've always kind of been there, But then you have other games like Rosewood Abbey, for example, or what's another one that like Hatchling Games' thing, Cryptid Creeks, right? Like those are CFB games that we had they just happened and I didn't learn about them until they were done, basically, right? But I love it. Like there's this. Regrettably, I don't have the time to read all of these things and internalize them. I just don't have the ability to do it. But happily, my co-host Alex on The Darkened Threshold, for example, he plays and lots of the third party stuff, right? Like he loves it. And he actually worked on Cryptic Creeks, and then but he's played a number of like third party CFB games, and he will always come back to me and tell me, like, you know, he'll be like, oh, I'm playing this game called The Girls of Genziana Hotel, which is a CFB game, and he'll kind of tell me, like, on our show, like, here's what this game is doing that I love, and like he'll kind of break it down for me. And so I do kind of learn it that way, you know, like and I do take inspiration from it, right? Like that game, The Girls from Genziana Hotel, it's like a short form Carved from Brindlewood game. It's not a campaign game. It's like a one or a two shot, you know? And because of it, and because of like chatting with Alex about it, I've gotten really interested in the idea of short form Carved from Brindlewood games, right? And like, what can I do with a short form Carved from Brindlewood game, right? Like, is there something there for the Gauntlet to do? Yeah, so it totally influences us, right? And I love it. I think it's great. I mean, I'm very, very open to people like making stuff for our games. Like I love when, because all of our games are scenario based, I love it if people make their own mysteries or their own threats for the Between, or their own scenarios or whatever for Brindlewood Bay. Like I love that. I think that's great. The only restriction I ever put on that is if you're going to use one of our named characters or one of our named places, apart from the general setting of like Brindlewood Bay, say, if you're going to use one of our named places or characters, just run it by me first, so that. But otherwise, I don't really care. Like you're free to make as much stuff as you want for our games, and I will. It'll have its own special place on our Discord, and it's there. And like eventually, we're going to put that stuff on the website. We'll try to like link to some of that third party stuff. We've put together this big initiative that we're still working on. There's a Google form that people can fill out, where if you have a third-party product, or you have a scenario for one of our games, or if you have like an actual play, or you have a blog post, or you have just anything connected to stuff we're doing, you fill out this Google form so that we know where it's at, and then we're going to try to like just do our best to like link and promote that stuff as best we're able to, you know, because there's so much stuff now out there that I can't keep up with all of it, but the really good stuff does eventually like get in front of me, you know. I do learn about it eventually, and I think it's great. I think it's terrific, and it's so like it's so satisfying, just in a personal sense. It's really, really satisfying knowing that something you created inspired someone to create something else, right? And we do writing contests all the time. We usually do like at least one or two a year, at least two a year. We do writing contests, and we do that because we want to encourage people to create, you know. Like I'm a big believer in like one of the best ways to engage with this hobby is to create things for it, you know. And I am a game designer who I just kind of got into it. Like no one gave me a job, I didn't work for a game company or anything, you know, like I just got into it. And so, and I didn't have any, like Brindlewood Bay was the first creative writing thing I ever wrote, right? Like I had no background in it. I just got into it. And so I love when people kind of take a chance and like create something. And it's really gratifying when a thing that you made inspires people to like kind of dip their toes into creativity, you know. I think that's super cool.
Yeah. And like you said, like it has to be like really satisfying as a creator to like make a thing and have people enjoy it, and that's great. And then like see the legacy of it, and like see the tendrils of it, like it, like, oh, it, you know.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, it's great. I mean, it's really neat. I recommend it. It's really fun.
I recommend everyone make an incredibly successul TTRPG.
Yeah, you know, go for
that
it.
Spawns third-party products.
Yeah, would recommend 10 out of 10. Yeah.
So I think we're talking about Brindlewood Bay. We have to talk about mysteries. It's just the rule. We can't not. Mysteries are hard in TTRPGs, and I think like, well, I think they're hard because I think people make them hard. I don't think they're hard inherently. I think like mysteries and puzzles in TTRPGs are things that people make hard because if they don't make them hard, they're easy. You know, like if you're playing, you know, some sort of fantasy based adventure, you know, dungeon crawler, any flavor, you know, there's like, oh, you find a puzzle And I think like the impulse is to say, oh, well, I want my players to feel like they're solving a puzzle. They want to solve a puzzle. And so let's do a thing. And it's like, well, but really, you should just like roll a die and then like, oh, you're smart, so you got it. And so I feel like the difficulty around it.
We're doing OSR discourse circa 2014, right?
Right. Like I very specifically remember like this and they've had it since then. Again, it comes up
all the time. Yep.
And I think it's, you know, it's that constant combat between like narrative and simulationist play.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
And you know, how did you approach it in Brindlewood Bay when you said like, I'm not going to make it difficult unnecessarily from a gameplay, like a mechanic perspective. I'm going to make it difficult from a narrative perspective in the sense that it's going to be multi-layered and complex and require input from everyone on the table.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I have a really good direct answer for this. I am a big believer in role-playing games as a medium of entertainment. And I think because of my deep experience at the table, I think I have a good handle of what our medium does really well, right? And so that is the starting point, right? What our medium does really well, indeed, it's the thing that it only does, no other form of entertainment can do, is collaborative storytelling, right? That's the heart of it, right? Like, you can watch a murder mystery TV show or read a book, and that's great. They all have, there's lots of things going on there that are exciting and enjoyable, but they're not the same thing as a role-playing game, right? Like a role-playing game, we are already, in our form of entertainment, in our hobby, we are already a little bit like behind in the sense that we don't have production values if we're not doing a super polished actual play. We don't have like actors. We have to get around a table and pretend and try to match up all of our respective headcanons. Like there's a lot of difficulty in role-playing games, right? There's a lot of things that we don't have in a role-playing game. But the one thing we have that those other things don't have is we have collaborative storytelling. This is the power of it. Role-playing games, they take what human beings are inherently good at, which is telling stories. That's something we do that we're really good at as a species. We take that thing that people are really, really good at, we add a layer of rules on it to make it a game, and then that's it, right? So from that vantage point, if you think about it in terms of strength of the medium and collaborative storytelling being the core strength of it, my mystery system starts to make a lot more sense, right? It starts to make a lot more sense that unlike in a book where there is a forced perspective and the clues are given to you in a really logical way so that you can solve the mystery, or unlike in a movie where like everything is being telegraphed to you visually and in an audio way, here we are presented with a mystery that takes advantage of the fact that we as people are really good at talking and coming up with stories, right? And so this is the core of it, right? The core of it is we are going to solve the mystery by just telling a story together, right? And it's still deduction, because even though there's not like a predetermined solution, you are absolutely 100% engaging in deduction when you solve a Brindlewood Bay or a public access mystery, right? Because you just are. You are still you're talking about the solution in a way that you would if you were a group of investigators talking about it, right? And so yeah, that's my answer. My answer is, the power of role-playing games is collaborative storytelling, and so my mystery system is all about harnessing the collaborative nature of the hobby and its strength, and just transposing that onto a mystery. You look at something like Call of Cthulhu. a game which I like for many reasons, but the mystery system is not one of them. Part of the problem with Call of Cthulhu and games like it, is you have this situation where what I find ends up happening is you have a couple of different things. One, either like the GM has like no flexibility whatsoever, and if the players don't go into the basement and find the one book, they can never reach the solution to the mystery, right? That happens a lot, right? Or alternatively, the GM, the keeper, realizes that the players are not anywhere near where they need to be, and so the keeper on the fly changes the whole mystery so that it can be solved, right? Like so one of those two things usually happens. It's very rare in my experience that play groups find all the clues in the order they're meant to find them and reach the solution as the module intends you to reach it, right? It's either they don't ever reach it, or the keeper is already changing things so much to make the player's solution work, right? Well, Brindlewood Bay and ilk just say, we're just going to do that from the beginning. We're just saying from the beginning, right? Like that your cool idea is probably the right answer, right? Like that's how we're doing it, you know? So that's it. That's the main thing. And again, I think you only reach that in the design if, like me, you come from a really, really strong culture of play, right? Like I don't think I land on the Brindlewood Bay mystery system if I had not been playing games like Lovecraft-esque, or playing games, that have, or like Dogs in the Vineyard, right? Like playing games that have like their own version of like narrative mystery solving, right? Like I don't, and I don't think you arrive at that without spending so much time at the table that you spend so much time at the table that you start to realize like what works, right? So I kind of intuited that people were going to love this way of solving a mystery, right? I just intuited it from just my experience at the table, and I was right. Not everybody loves it, but most people I play with love it, right? And so that's it all goes back to play for me ultimately. Like that's how you kind of arrive at that place, But no, it's all about collaborative storytelling. Yeah.
It feels like what you've managed to do is sort of build a system of mechanics to replicate what everyone does when they're watching a murder mystery movie anyway.
Yeah.
My partner and I just watched Murder on the Orient Express, the new one. And I mean, any sort of, like, I remember when I watched like Knives Out, there's the part where you're like 4/5 of the way through the movie, and you can tell threads start coming together, and you're like, it has to be him because of X, Y, Z.
You start talking about it. Yep.
Oh, it has but it has to be him because you got to remember he wasn't there. He was, and what if you could pause the movie and have that whole conversation and decide, actually, it's most interesting if it's this person because of this, and this, and this. It's cooler if there was a secret passage that let them be in two places that you don't expect. And then, hey, that's the movie. You unpause the movie, that's the movie you came up with.
You're kind of like I said, you're kind of creating the mystery as you solve it, right? Which I think is fun. And for a lot of people, I get it. There's a lot of people who I'm never going to convince of this. Like they're just always, I'm just never going to convince them. They're always going to be like it's not real, but whatever.
No, it's better if you write the name of the murderer in an envelope and put it down, and then we have to get it right.
Exactly. Yeah, like there's just some people I'm never going to reach, and that's fine. And I'm not even like criticizing how they want to do it. Like they have a particular way they want to do things, and that's fine. Everybody should go have fun however they want to do it. I've reached a point where enough people realize how cool this is the way we're doing it that I'm just going to keep focusing on those folks.
And I think it needs to be said, like, I think so much of what makes Brindlewood Bay exciting is the like incredibly specific and evocative setting. Like you mentioned, like you're playing as old women, and you were very firm about that. And I think that adds so much character and excitement to it, because like it makes it make more sense that the theme of the game would be a murder mystery type game than if it was, if it was just 4 guys, then it's just like, oh, well, they would just go fight the cult or something like that. You know what I mean? And 4 grannies aren't just gonna, get strapped up and go into the cave by the sea.
Well, but also, like, and I think this is kind of what you're getting at a little bit. Like, there's also this idea of like just emulating genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am pretty plainly emulating, Murder She Wrote, Miss Marple, Poirot. Like, I'm trying to like emulate a really particular type of genre convention, which I think helps people get into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they accept a lot of this sort of like what we're doing here precisely because we're clearly doing a genre thing,
Yeah. The murder mystery genre is not
Mm-hmm.
one where detectives and investigators and stuff are overly combated, overly violent, they're
not. Yeah, well, yeah, it's like, why does Trail of Cthulhu and Call of Cthulhu have so much emphasis on combat? Right? It's like that's not what you should be doing, right? But anyway, yeah.
But yeah, and it's listen, if you haven't tried it, take this as an opportunity. Take this as a chance. Go to the Gauntlet. I don't know.
Go watch an AP. Go watch an AP.
Is there one AP that you would point people to if you're like, watch this one?
I'm actually going to say not a Brindlewood Bay one. I'm going to actually, I have one on my channel called The Ninth Step, which is quite good. And there are some really good ones out there. But actually, lately, the really good APs I find are for the Between. We have some really good APs for the Between that are kind of out in the system right now. There's one on the Bad Spot YouTube channel, which I'm in the middle of right now. Running it for them, and it is fantastic. So good. And then we have this podcast one with Ain't Slayed Nobody for the Between. For Brindlewood Bay, I would recommend on my YouTube channel, my playlist called The Ninth Step. That's where most people who need some help learning Brindlewood Bay, that's where most of them are going, is to watch that. But I actually have it in mind to put a new one up pretty soon, because The Ninth Step, as much as I love it, it's a little older now, and I think that it kind of came out like when the newest edition of the game was still kind of being made. So I kind of want to do one that's like fully like post new edition, So that's going to happen at some point. But yeah, that. I would probably start there. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I always find it's so effective. Like when people say like, "Oh, go watch an AP," it's like, which one? Like tell me, point at it. We're coming up on time, so sadly, Jason, we're coming to the end of our time together. This is usually where I take the opportunity. Jason, thank you so much for coming on, for making time and chatting with everybody. Like it's people, as I keep saying, people keep saying yes. And I don't know what to do about that. I don't know how to feel about that.
I will come on anytime. So,
I have been brainstorming a thing, the idea for a shorter episode for people who have been on before, for sort of more like bite-sized thing. I don't know. I got to think about it. But yeah, I'll anytime. Always happy to have anybody.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
But so we have our two sort of final up things here. Jason, what is your homework for everybody? For people who don't know, homework is a thing. It's Jason's opportunity to just say, hey, here are things y'all should check out. Whether it's, his stuff, somebody else's stuff, games, movies, podcasts, whatever he thinks is exciting that he wants to get more eyes on.
I do media recommendations on my podcast as well. So I've got a huge well of things to draw from. I read lots of books and watch lots of movies. I'm going to actually recommend that folks check out, there's this video, it's a series, I think you can get it on Blu-ray, but it's also on streaming somewhere. It's a 3-part documentary. It's a total of like 9 hours, I think. It's called In Search of Darkness. In Search of Darkness, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. And what this is it is in each part, they go from 1980 to 1989, and they cherry pick different horror movies from that year, and they have like talking heads who kind of like talk about it. They show clips of the movies, and then they have people talk about it. And then in between each year, they do like a topic where they do like a little kind of mini documentary about a particular topic in the horror in the horror genre of movies, right? And it's really terrific. It's such a great survey of 1980s horror. We've talked a lot about mystery on this, but the Gauntlet's also known quite a lot for horror games as well, right? And so horror is a big focus for me, and in particular, I love retro horror, 80s and 90s horror especially, and 70s too. But In Search of Darkness, really fantastic. You can just kind of put these on and kind of let them play. You can get ideas for like movies to go watch. It's a great survey of the era of just like, of like well-known movies, but also lesser-known movies, and just a great conversation. If you are a horror head like I am, it is a fantastic series. I have them on Blu-ray. It's a great Blu-ray collection, and they're also doing one for the 90s, and I have not watched that one yet, but that's another thing, that In Search of Darkness. For books, I'm gonna recommend the books of Nick Cutter. Nick Cutter is a Canadian horror author who has written several books that are probably the one I'm going to recommend the most is called The Troop, but he wrote another one that's really quite good called Little Heaven, and his newest one is called The Queen. But what Nick Cutter does that's so great is Nick Cutter does this really great, like, you know how Stephen King does that thing where it's kind of all about like nostalgia and childhood, and like kind of the horror of that. Nick Cutter does that, but adds in like an incredible amount of body horror. so like, if you are just into really gruey, gnarly, nasty shit like I am, Nick Cutter, the books are very well written. The stories are great. That's his pseudonym. He has another name that he writes under, which I can't remember, but he's actually like a really like high-minded, like literary writer in his other life, but he brings his talent to horror. So they're really beautifully written books that are also really nasty. They're just so disgusting and nasty. And I love a nasty, disgusting book. Related to that, there is this really fantastic set of books that was put out a couple years ago by Valancourt, these reissues called Paperbacks from Hell. And the Paperbacks from Hell reissues, these were horror novels from the 1970s that are pretty trashy, if I'm being honest, but I like a little bit of trash. Pretty trashy, but Grady Hendrix and I can't remember who the other guy was, but they curated this selection of long out-of-print horror books from the 1970s that were paperback only, and rechristened them the Paperbacks from Hell. And these are some good books. Like, if you're like me and you like a nasty little horror book, like that's so good. So yeah, that's my other book recommendation, for sure. And also for a newer thing, if you haven't seen Sinners, go watch Sinners. Sinners is so great.
We've like we have 2 movie theaters, and I gotta make time. Go
watch Sinners. Sinners is so good. It's so great. It didn't quite stick the landing for me, but that does not take away from the fact that the movie is amazing. Such a cool movie.
Yeah. A life thing. We have a 4K TV that the imager like burned out, and I need to go get it replaced. And it's one of those things where since it's in my office where my wife works, I never see it. And I actually told her over the weekend, like, I went in there to vacuum and I was like, oh yeah, right, the TV. Oh shit, I never see it. But yeah, when I got to get that fixed, because there's like so many movies. We finished Severance last night.
Love Severance.
And then we started poking around on other things on Apple Plus, and I was like, watch this in 4K. This would be nice.
Severance was so good, huh? Oh man, that's so
Severance was good. There's some narrative threads there's some things I would have changed that I think would have made it a nice through line, but
they've still got me. Like,
it's still good. It's still good, like, but it's like
all 3 seasons have been like, they've reached kind of a point where I am almost like, I am not. Like, you need to get to the point, because I am not buying this premise much longer. Like, I am this close to getting off the bus, and then they do something that just pulls me right back, and I'm like, and then I did it for the rest of the season. Yeah.
If nothing else, they have managed to capture that feeling that I had like from the early seasons of Lost, where you're just you don't know what's happening, and you're just kind of floating along for the ride, and that's great, and you love it, and like that's
I'll be curious to see how long they can hold it up. Because Lost, of course, got away from them, right? And I fear that. I fear that's going to happen with Severance too, but I think if they kind of wrap up Severance in the next season or two, I think it will be okay.
I think Severance has 2 more seasons before they're going to start to
really, really
stretch. And I would so much rather them have 1 more season and just crush it and be done than anything. That's what
Schitt's Creek did. Schitt's Creek. They got out at the exact right moment. Yeah. They were like, you know what? We've done everything we're going to do here. We're going to end on a high. More shows need to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
That's been my big critique. Even before streaming, kind of ruined how a season works anyway. That was always my big critique with American television shows. Was they just seem to want to run forever and not really have an idea. Yeah, and I'm like, no,
demands of network, find a
good spot, finish it. Have an ending.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
We're about to do. This is the 3 question. This is the last question. This is our fun little outro thing. Jason, this is the 3 question. I came up with it during the first episode. I asked my guest, the wonderful Star, her top 3 AP actors she would have on her show, and ever since then I've asked somebody their top 3 something. Come up with it during the episode. Just a fun little outro, fun little silly question. People keep having answers far too ready to go, and so I feel like I need to step my game up. When I interviewed Lola, I was like, Lola, what are your 3 favorite planets that aren't in the solar system? And they fucking pulled out a chart with research and knew the classifications. And I've never recovered. I've never financially recovered from this. Cause you want it to be approachable, cause I don't want it to take 20 minutes, but also, you want it to be a little fun.
Sure. Yeah.
Jason, what are your, other than Murder, She Wrote, can't say it, can't cheat. What are your top 3 murder mystery protagonists?
Oh, that's really great. Well, I absolutely love Benoit Blanc from the Knives Out movies. He is fantastic. Really just a great character that I want to know more about. I find myself wanting to know more about Benoit Blanc than anything else going on in those movies, even though I love those movies. So certainly Benoit Blanc. I'm going to say this is a real outside the box answer, but there was this book called The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. This was about 10 years ago, and I think there's been a sequel, but I haven't read the sequel. But it's a mystery book. The character, the investigator, is this little girl. She's like 12 or something, or 11 or 12, and she kind of stumbles onto this murder mystery, and she kind of solves it the way a little kid does, and so she's fantastic. Just love. That's just a great book, and she's just a really well drawn character. And then I'm gonna go with my third one. There's so many here, but let's go with, the easy answer is Columbo, but do I want to say Columbo? That's the really easy answer. I'll probably just have to go with that. Yeah, go with Columbo.
You have to wait against other things like. Yeah. I think Benoit Blanc and Columbo nail the thing that I think you need to have a little bit in a murder mystery, like investigator or detective, where they're a little weird. They're a little weird. They're a little rumbled, they're a little just what's going on with you? Yeah. Which, shouts to Monk. That's
another good one. Yeah,
overlooked. But that's gonna be it. Jason, thanks so much for your time.
Hey, Matt, this is great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's such a joy. They can't let me keep getting away with this. I can't. I have to keep saying. But that's gonna be it. Go ahead, say bye, everybody. All right, that's the interview. That's another episode done. I want to thank Jason so much for coming on the podcast. It was fantastic to get to connect with him, and I'll be honest, I was a little starstruck when he said he remembered me from the G+ days. As always, you can find all the links to Jason's stuff in the show notes. Obviously, gauntletrpg.com is going to be the best place to go. It really means something to me that in everything that's happened over the last roughly decade and all of the change and problems and all of this, that something like the Gauntlet has maintained and has survived and is not only just survived, but thrived and is active and is, producing games and players and all of that. Having that consistency in one thing, it means something to me. I recommend everyone go check out their Discord, go engage with the community. You will more than likely have a really good time. But so the fun announcement that I teased at the beginning, I'm very excited to announce that What You Doing Podcast has our first sort of partnership thing. I've been chatting with Tony over at Plus One EXP, and he was incredibly generous enough to offer a discount code for listeners of this podcast. If you're not familiar, Plus One EXP is a fantastic group of people that work very hard to help designers get their games in front of players and help players discover amazing new games. The more that I become aware of the community, the more I realize how much Tony is working in the background to help people get connected, to help people find resources, help people get what they need. He's a big help with Zine Month, which we interviewed a ton of people for. And so it is just a fantastic opportunity to have this discount code for everybody. The code is going to give you 10% off of any physical or digital purchase on the Plus One EXP web store. And it also is going to give you 10% off of your first month of the RPG Zine Club. And the Zine Club is a fantastic initiative where every month you can subscribe to get OSR style games, story style games, or screw it, both of them delivered to your inbox or your mailbox monthly or every other month. They also have a friendly local game store option, which is a great way to get smaller works directly in front of people in stores. Now, again, the code is WD Podcast, all one word. You'll find it in the show notes if you want to just copy paste, but go to plusoneexp.com. 10% off your order, anything you want, or your first month of your Zine Club membership. Thank you again so much to Tony. I really appreciate it. As always, if you want to follow the show, you can do so at Blue Sky or Instagram. I uploaded the first little snippet from the podcast, a little video snippet on Blue Sky and Instagram the other day. I remembered there's an Instagram account. I don't know why I forget Instagram so hard. If you followed this show over on Instagram, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I will endeavor to try harder. If you've got a little extra money in your pocket, you can swing by the Patreon. You can help me cover the hosting fees. I'm going to start working on getting everything uploaded to the Patreon, all of the audio and video releases. So that will be the sort of one-stop shop for everything if you don't want to deal with RSS feeds or YouTube or whatever. But as always, I appreciate everybody just for listening. As always, I've got another great episode to go work on. So I'll see you in the next one.